Do you feel it? That strange feeling, like something inside you is moving. It's not peace, not yet, but it's not the same despair as before either. It's like the storm is still on the horizon, but you, for the first time in a long time, are no longer running from it. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of your healing? Maybe you woke up today and didn't feel that tightness in your chest as soon as you opened your eyes. Maybe you managed to get out of bed without dealing with fear for 40 minutes. Or maybe you didn't even notice. But today when someone spoke to you, your mind didn't sabotage you with 10 voices at the same time. Is this what people call improvement? Because we expect a revolution, right? You think that when you get better, it will be obvious, it will be a magical moment, an announcement in the heavens. You've conquered anxiety, but that's not how it happens. Improvement comes like a whisper, not like a scream. It comes in small changes, almost invisible, that only those who feel it in their bodies know how to recognize. But to notice these signs, you need to take a break, breathe, and look with courage. I ask you, have you noticed these signs? Maybe you think you're just in a good phase. Maybe you think it's a coincidence, but what if I told you it isn't? What if I told you that your body is already starting to show you that something is changing even before you rationally understand it? Think with me. Do you remember what it was like before? What was it like to feel like the world was an unsafe place? All the time? What was it like to leave home and already plan your emotional escape routes? What was it like to smile forcedly, with your heart imploding inside? And now, even though there are still remnants of all that, something feels different, less heavy, more bearable, more possible. You feel like you can breathe a little better, speak without so much fear of being judged, sleep without thinking that you will go crazy the next day. This is real, and that matters. But we need to talk about something deeper. Why is it so hard to believe we're getting better? Why does our brain insist on holding us to the idea that we are just getting lucky, that this won't last? Is it too early to celebrate? Because we have been trained day after day to trust pain more than healing, more in suffering than in lightness. So when improvement appears, it is frightening, because it's new, because it is silent, because it demands a new identity, and assuming that we are improving takes courage. Courage to leave the zone of identification with pain. Courage not to sabotage your own progress. But let me tell you a secret. He who feels knows. Deep down, you know. You may even doubt the improvement, but there's a part of you that's starting to trust. This part deserves to be heard. This part needs to be strengthened, because it is the embryo of your freedom. And now, answer me. Are you willing to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, you are finally beginning to break out of the invisible prison of anxiety? If the answer is yes, then stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to clearly identify these little signs and why they matter more than any magical promise of healing. You deserve to know. And more than that, you deserve to believe. Have you ever felt like you were living inside a body that wasn't yours? As if your mind was screaming all the time, but no one was listening? Not even you? This is the silent prison of anxiety. It's waking up and already being tired. Before you even start your day, your head has already run a marathon of catastrophic thoughts. And the worst part is that nobody sees it. On the outside, you function, work, respond, smile. But inside, you're always trying not to fall apart. It's like holding a glass of water. At first it seems light, but over time, your hand starts to shake. The weight is the same, but the effort becomes unbearable. That's what anxiety does. She turns simple tasks into obstacles, conversations in threats, silences in punishments. You try to sleep, but your mind refuses. She reviews every word you said today. Imagine every tragedy that can happen tomorrow. And in the midst of all this, why? You feel weak. Because no one taught you that feeling all this is actually a sign of sensitivity, not weakness. No one explained to you that you are not alone. But let me tell you a cold truth. Many are living exactly what you are living, but in silence. The pain of anxiety is collective. It's the evil of a generation that has learned to look good, even when it's imploding inside. It's looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. It's leaving the house with your heart in your throat It's responding, "It's okay," with your soul, crying for help. And yet, continue, because stopping seems even scarier. Have you ever tried to ask for help, but felt like no one understood? Or, worse, that they minimized their pain? That's all in your head. You think too much. You have everything. Why are you like this? And then you shut up, retracts, and you start to believe that the problem is you. But it isn't. You're just going through a process that many people go through, and that few have the courage to admit. Anxiety is not a joke. It's no exaggeration. It is a body on constant alert. It's a mind trying to survive without rest. It's your nervous system saying, "Something's wrong here, look at me." And you try to ignore it because life demands performance, but there comes a time when the body demands it, and he doesn't ask for permission. Have you noticed this? How does your body speak? In the tiredness that doesn't go away, in short breath, in the constant feeling that something bad is going to happen, and even when it doesn't happen, the tension continues, as if at any moment the ground would open up, as if relaxing was dangerous. This is the pain of living in a state of alert, and she steals everything from you, your peace, your spontaneity, your energy. But the cruelest thing is that it also steals your identity. You begin to define yourself by anxiety. I think I'm anxious. That's just how I am. There's no way. But it does. There is a way. There is a way out. But before any technique, any therapy, any advice, you need something simpler and more difficult. Recognize that this pain is real and that it does not diminish its value. You are not less strong because you feel too much. You are not weak because you need help. You are human, and every human suffers. But shared suffering transforms. When you understand that you are not alone, pain begins to lose its power to isolate you. You start to see yourself in others, and to see that there is a way, maybe slow, maybe difficult, but possible. And that changes everything. Jordan Peterson talks about this with almost uncomfortable clarity. Anxiety is a call from the soul to look at what you are avoiding. And maybe that's exactly what's happening to you. It's not crazy. It's not weakness. It is a deep warning from your being asking for a new direction. Peterson explains that, contrary to what many people think, anxiety is not just a chemical problem. It is also, and often primarily, an existential symptom. A sign that something inside you is disorganized, misaligned, disconnected. When you live a lie, your body starts screaming the truth, he says. This sentence changed the way I see everything, because it takes us out of the role of passive victims and puts us in the shoes of protagonists who need to face their own truth. But look, that doesn't mean guilt. It's not about pointing fingers at yourself. It's about understanding that this discomfort, this pain that seems unbearable, can be a map to your true path. Peterson reminds us that the journey of coping begins with brutal honesty, with the almost radical act of saying, "Yes, I am lost. Yes, I'm scared, but I don't want to hide anymore." Can you say that to yourself now? If so, you're already ahead of a lot of people, because most run away, avoid, pretend everything is fine, while slowly imploding. But you are here, listening, searching for meaning, and that matters. This is already healing in motion. Peterson teaches that instead of fighting anxiety as if it were an enemy, the most powerful path is to listen to it, with respect, with courage. It is not the monster that destroys you. It's the fact that I don't know where it's hidden. That phrase of his haunts me, because how many times do we suffer trying to escape, when what we need most is to sit with the pain and ask, "What are you trying to show me?" Maybe your anxiety is telling you that you are not in the right place, that he is cheating on himself, who is living to please others, or that you are ignoring your deepest calling. And yes, it hurts to hear that, but it hurts even more to spend a lifetime trying to silence the voice of your soul. Peterson says that inner chaos only finds peace when the truth begins to be spoken, even if it is a harsh truth. So if you're starting to feel small changes, if your breathing is less tight, if your days are feeling a little less heavy, acknowledge this. Cherish it. You are answering the call. You are looking at yourself more sincerely. And that's rare. It's brave. It is necessary. If Jordan Peterson were here right now, he would probably tell you, don't underestimate the value of small, sincere steps. They are worth more than grand empty gestures. So if this video is touching something in you, if, in some way, you felt understood, here is a simple, direct, and sincere request. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. It's not just for us. It's for yourself. Because every time you support this type of content, you are reinforcing a new path. It's saying, this kind of conversation matters. This truth needs to continue to be told. And you can be sure, with every click you make, more people find this message. More people who live in silence will have the chance to hear, hey, you're not alone. And that, my friend, already transforms the world. There is a very well-told lie out there, a lie that many people repeat without even realizing it. When you overcome anxiety, you will become a calm person. Looks nice, right? But it is deeply misleading, because it creates an impossible expectation. It makes you believe that one day, you will wake up feeling light, fulfilled, serene, and that you will never again feel fear, tension, or anguish. But it's not like that. The truth is that overcoming anxiety means eliminating anxiety, meaning transform your relationship with her. That's the break. You don't become someone zen. You become someone who learned to live with his own monsters without being dominated by them. Peterson talks about this a lot. He says that true strength is not the absence of chaos. It is the ability to walk within it without getting lost. Have you ever stopped to think about this? How many times have you blamed yourself for still feeling, because I still have seizures? Why still wake up with a racing heart? And then you think, I failed. I haven't gotten over it yet. But what if I told you that this thought is holding you back? That this demand is, in fact, part of the cycle that makes you sick? Because every time you believe you should be calm all the time, you distance yourself from your own human nature. You are made of emotions, you feel it, you react, you get scared, you protect yourself. This is not weakness. It's biology. It is existence. The question is not to feel. The question is, what do you do with what you feel? And this is where real liberation lies. You begin to overcome anxiety when you stop fighting it as if it were an incurable disease and begin to see it as a legitimate part of your human experience, one that is there to teach you something. This shift in perspective changes everything. Stop being a battle to be won, and it becomes a process to be lived consciously. Do you understand? It's subtle, but it's revolutionary. What's more, this false belief that one day I'll be 100% calm also distances you from life. Because real life is not calm. Real life is chaotic, unpredictable, challenging. True calm does not come from a noiseless external world. It comes from a mind that has learned to do, not dissolve into the noise. When you understand this, you stop judging yourself, stop comparing yourself, stop boycotting yourself every time you feel anxiety coming back. You begin to recognize, okay, I'm anxious, but I'm not lost. Okay, fear has set in, but I know how to walk anyway. This is emotional maturity. This is freedom. You see the anxiety coming, and instead of panicking, you breathe. You anchor yourself. You listen. You act despite the fear. You move with him at your side, no longer as an executioner, but as a signaler. And that is what liberates. So please, let go of that idea of perfection. Release this expectation of an enlightened, serene, unattainable self. You don't need to become Buddha. You need to become yourself, with more truth, more awareness, more presence. And if someone tells you that anxiety will disappear forever, suspect, because anyone who has truly faced darkness knows, light does not erase shadow. She just teaches you how to walk with her. And that, yes, is true healing. When anxiety starts to lessen, not so much that it disappears, but enough that you notice it, something very important happens. You start listening, not the external noises, not the noise of life around you, but the silence within you. This silence is awkward at first. It's disturbing, because for so long you've been running away from him. For so long his mind had been racing, trying to erase what was inside. But now, with this space created, what do you listen to? Peterson calls us to pay attention to this moment as if it were a kind of rebirth. He says that's when we begin to truly find ourselves, when the mask starts to fall, when self-knowledge begins. Listening to yourself is not simple. It's not just about staying silent. It is an act of courage. It's looking at your own shadows, fears, and doubts honestly, without judgment. And that's where the real work begins. Because what you find inside may be uncomfortable, it can be painful, it can make you want to go back to the escape zone you knew so well. But you know what else? This inner listening is the only path to deep healing. There's no point in trying to hide the truth. There's no point in running away from the shadow. There's no point in looking for quick answers. You need to look inside. You need to ask yourself, what is this anxiety telling me? What am I avoiding? What do I really need to face to free myself? And that's hard, because it involves facing one's own darkness. But remember, Peterson says that it is precisely in this confrontation that growth and transformation reside. You can start small, with one question a day, with a moment of silence, with conscious breathing, and little by little, this inward look becomes clearer, kinder, more powerful. You begin to understand that anxiety is not an enemy, but a messenger. It brings valuable information about what you are feeling, about what you need to change. And when you stop to listen, without fear, without rushing, you begin to respond to these messages. You start to act more consciously. You begin to choose paths that make sense to you, not to anxiety, not to fear. This is called self-knowledge, an invitation to leave survival behind and enter life with more presence. But make no mistake, it's not a straight line. It's a dance, a process full of advances and setbacks. There will be days when anxiety will come back strong. There will be times when you want to give up. But the important thing is to keep listening, keep making space for what's inside. Because it is in this process that you begin to rebuild yourself, to meet again, to free yourself. And this is more than just overcoming anxiety. It's living lightly, even with difficulties. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about the importance of looking at our shadow, that dark hidden part of ourselves that we try to avoid at all costs. And in the process of overcoming anxiety, this confrontation is fundamental. Anxiety often arises from what we repress, of what we don't want to see in ourselves, of the wounds we close with a fragile glue called denial. Peterson calls us to an honest look. No fear, no escape. He says the shadow doesn't disappear when you close your eyes to it. It grows, it gets stronger, and it starts to control your life, even if you don't realize it. Therefore, facing the shadow is an act of courage greater than any technique or magic formula. It's recognizing that there is chaos within you, and that to move forward, you have to dance with it, not run away. When you look at your anxiety as part of that shadow, you begin to understand its signals, that she is not an enemy, but a part of you trying to survive. And that changes the game. You stop fighting anxiety violently and start approaching it with respect. Peterson reinforces that facing the shadow requires humility. Humility to admit your failures, your wounds, your deepest fears, and also to accept that there is no perfect me waiting on the other side. The process is slow, painful, and full of internal resistance, but it is also liberating. When you look at the shadow, you give voice to what was silent, recognize the parts of yourself that cry out for help. And so, integration begins. The shadow ceases to be an invisible burden and becomes a transformative force. This doesn't mean that anxiety disappears overnight, but it means you start to build a different relationship with her. You come to understand that anxiety, deep down, is a guardian, a protection born from the fear of getting lost, of getting hurt. And with that understanding, you can choose not to let it dictate your choices. You can start taking control of your life, even with that shadow by your side. Peterson reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is to act in spite of him. And acting with the shadow is one of the greatest acts of courage there is. Because when you face your shadow, you are looking at your deepest truth. You are making room to become a more whole, more real, more free version of yourself. It is an invitation to leave the prison of denial, to open the doors of self-knowledge, and thus build a life that is not controlled by fear, but guided by truth. So if you're on this journey, don't be discouraged. Look at your shadow, ask her what she wants to show you, and walk with her. Because it is on this path that overcoming anxiety ceases to be a distant dream, and it becomes a real, human, and transformative process. Imagine that you are in a dense, dark forest where every step is uncertain. Anxiety is like a thick fog that envelops everything. Your thoughts, your senses, your heart. It hides the path, confuses your steps, holds you in place. For years, you've been trying to run out of this forest. Walk fast, try shortcuts, look for lights on the horizon. But the fog insists on not letting you see clearly. Now, imagine that, in the middle of this darkness, you find a flashlight. It's not an ordinary flashlight. It is small, simple, but has a firm and constant light. It doesn't clear away all the fog at once. It doesn't make the forest disappear, but it illuminates the next step. And it is in this small focus of light that transformation resides, because what seems scary and immense, little by little, reveals itself step by step. You don't need to see the whole forest to walk. You just need to trust the light you have in your hands. This lantern is self-knowledge. It is the courage to look within. It is the understanding that anxiety is not a curse but a sign. When you start using this flashlight, the fog starts to lose power. You learn to take conscious steps. Even without knowing what lies ahead, you realize you don't need to have all the answers to move. And little by little, the forest stops being a prison and becomes a path. And here's the key. It's not the absence of fear that makes the journey worth it. It is the act of walking in fear. To let the flashlight illuminate what you can face now, without demanding that it reveal everything. This metaphor is powerful because it brings real hope, not the easy hope, but hope is born from acceptance. Acceptance of fear, acceptance of the shadow, acceptance of the journey. Because overcoming anxiety is not a leap to a place without fear. It's learning to live with it and still choosing to move forward. And do you know what that means? That freedom is not in total control. It's in the trust. Confidence that even when the forest seems too dark, you can find enough light to carry on. Confidence that your strength does not lie in the absence of struggle, but in the ability to resist the fight. And that, my friend, is one of the greatest lessons Jordan Peterson brings to us. It's not about eliminating chaos, but learning to navigate it, to find the light that is already within you. And with that light, you can walk, one step at a time. Do you remember that moment when everything seemed lost? When anxiety was such a shadow that it seemed to swallow your entire life? When every breath felt like a battle and the idea of peace seemed like a distant lie? Now imagine a different moment, an instant where, for the first time, you realize that you are no longer completely dominated by that shadow. It's not a moment of glory, there's no applause, no spotlights. It is a silent moment, almost unnoticed, but profoundly transformative. It's when, for the first time, you take a deep breath. Not because you need to prepare for the worst, but because you feel a space within yourself that didn't exist before. It's a moment where the fear is still there, but you feel like you can face it. This is the turning point. The moment when you stop being a victim of anxiety and start becoming the protagonist of your own life. And do you know what that requires? A courage that goes beyond the physical. A courage that comes from the heart. Because to get through this point, you need to look within and accept that pain, fear, and uncertainty are part of the journey. You need to accept that there is no clean, straightforward path, but even so it is possible to walk. This moment may seem small to those observing from the outside, but for you, it's a silent revolution. It is the awakening of your inner strength. Jordan Peterson talks about this when he says that true transformation doesn't come from outside, but from the encounter with oneself, of recognizing one's own shadows and the decision to walk in spite of them. You begin to realize that anxiety is not a prison, but an invitation to grow. And suddenly things change. Not because the anxiety has disappeared, but because you changed. You changed the way you relate to her. You learned that you can feel fear and still act. Who can feel pain and still smile. That can fall and still get up. This is the climax of your journey. The moment you realize that anxiety doesn't define who you are, that you are greater than any fear, and that realization is powerful. It opens doors that were previously closed. She turns on a light that illuminates the way. And for the first time you feel like you can move forward, not with the illusion that everything will be perfect, but with the certainty that you have the strength within you to face whatever comes. This is the turning point, the beginning of your true freedom. And even though the journey is still long, this moment is your milestone. the line where struggle begins to turn into conquest. And that's what I want you to take away from here. That even in the darkness there is a light, that even in fear there is courage, that even in anxiety there is the possibility of being whole, and that possibility is within you. Now, let's talk about transformation, but without illusions. Overcoming anxiety isn't about becoming a superhero overnight. It's not a magic trick nor an instant miracle. It's a process, a hard, continuous process that requires patience, especially with yourself. Jordan Peterson, in his teachings, makes it clear that true transformation is slow. It happens in small, silent steps that add up. Don't expect anxiety to go away completely. She may not even disappear. But what changes is your relationship with it. You start to know yourself better, understanding your triggers, building tools to deal with what comes up. And with that, your life will gain more space for lightness. This lightness is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to live in spite of it. It's the learning that you can feel anxious and still move forward. This is the real transformation. It's realistic, it's human, it is possible, and it is much more powerful than the empty promise of instant healing, because she respects who you are today, with all your struggles, and recognizes your potential to grow. Peterson reminds us that emotional maturity lies in accepting difficulties without giving up, in walking with them, not against them. This is the key to a fuller life. You will make mistakes, will retreat, you will feel scared, but it will continue, and every step taken in that direction counts. Each small step forward builds the foundation for a life that, even with challenges, can be lived with greater awareness and freedom. This promise of transformation is not a magical destiny. It's a journey that begins with acknowledging your pain and deciding to face it. And you don't have to do it alone. Seeking support, therapy, and people who understand what you're going through is part of this process. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of courage. And most importantly, this transformation does not redefine who you are. It reveals who you already are, behind the fear, behind the anxiety, behind the doubts. You are a person capable of living, feeling, and growing. And that is the biggest promise I can make to you today. That even if the path is difficult, you can find your strength in it. That transformation is real when you embrace the journey, not just the destination. Jordan Peterson says something that resonates like a mantra for anyone facing inner chaos. It is not the absence of chaos that creates order, but the courage to walk within it without destroying oneself. This phrase carries a depth that few can truly understand, because in truth, life will never be a space of complete calm. Life is a complex tangle of challenges, pains, joys, and fears, and anxiety is often a reflection of this entanglement. But what differentiates those who manage to overcome is not the disappearance of chaos. It's the posture before him. It's courage. Courage to face the shadow that lives within us. Courage to admit that we don't have all the answers. Courage to take a step even when the path seems uncertain. This courage is not something that comes out of nowhere. It is built day after day in the small decisions to continue, in choosing to look within, even when it hurts, in the decision to allow yourself to feel and act despite fear. And it is this courage that I invite you to cultivate, because in the end, it is what makes the difference between living dominated by anxiety and live with anxiety by your side, without getting lost. Peterson also reminds us that this journey is not a solitary one. Seeking support, sharing your pain and your victories is an essential part of the process, and that true strength is not in denying suffering, but in recognizing it. So when you feel tired, when the weight seems too much, remember this phrase: that order does not come from a vacuum, but the continuous act of walking, even within the storm, that you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be brave, and that every step you take, no matter how small it may seem, is a victory, because overcoming anxiety is not a destination, it's a journey, and this journey deserves to be lived with courage, truly, with humanity. I needed to share this with you, because I know there are a lot of people out there, lost, suffocated, screaming in silence, who feels the weight of anxiety like an invisible prison. And I want you to know, you are not alone. Every word you heard here, every insight, every challenge, is part of a larger conversation. A conversation that needs to be heard, that needs to be shared. If you felt something different, if this message touched you, I invite you to do something simple but powerful. Share. Share this with anyone you think needs to hear this. Because every time you share, you shine a light for someone in the dark. You show that there is hope, that there is a way, that it's not just you who suffers. This support network, this community that is beginning to form, is one of our greatest strengths. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about the importance of collective responsibility, that taking care of yourself is also taking care of others, that when one of us steps forward, we all step forward. And that's what I want you to do. Subscribe, leave a like, comment on what you felt, connect. Don't let this message stay here alone, because healing is not a solitary process. It is a collective movement. And the more people allow themselves to see, feel, and act, the more lightness there will be in this world. Anxiety can be a lonely monster, but when faced together, it loses its power. And here, together, we are building something new, a community that is not ashamed of pain, that does not hide from fear, who chooses courage, truth, transformation, and you are part of it. No matter where you are today, no matter how deep anxiety has taken you, what matters is the decision to continue, to try, to believe that life can be different. This decision, made by you and many others, is the seed of a new reality, one where anxiety no longer controls, but coexists, one where the pain is acknowledged, but not definitive. And I want you to feel part of it, because this fight is ours, and together we are stronger. So, if this video touched you, don't just let it pass. Do your part. Spread this message. Help someone find that light. And remember, you are not alone, you matter, and it is possible to live lightly, one step at a time.